guys, so I'm here today to share with you some books that will make you laugh. I personally really enjoy a kind of comedy book, especially a kind of comic fantasy or science fiction book. Laughter is truly the best medicine. I always find when I'm having a stressful day or a bad week or longer that watching something or reading something that's not just subtly funny but that literally makes me laugh out loud from the bottom of my stomach can have a really positive effect on my mood. And the authors and books in this video have all made me laugh out loud quite physically, and a number of them I've actually also reread because I just find comedy one of those genres that's very rereadable. So if you enjoy funny books, I thought I'd film this video and recommend some of my favourite funny books to you. And I think it's worth pointing out as well that none of these books sacrifice kind of plot and good storytelling for the sake of a joke. They are all good stories as well. I'm going to start with the most obvious, and that is Terry Pratchett's Discworld. I have a whole video on my channel about where to start with the Discworld series. If you're interested, I'll link it down below. But essentially the Discworld is a world that Terry Pratchett created, and within this world he set over 40 books, some of which are standalone stories, others of which make up independent series, and all of course being set in the same world. So although they're not all interlinked plot-wise, there are sometimes reoccurring characters and a lot of the same locations in the different stories. I thought I'd just recommend 3 of my favourites in this video, all of which I think are really excellent places to start. So the first one is The Wee Freeman, and I thought I'd recommend this one because it's a little bit different, as it's actually the first in Terry Pratchett's YA Discworld series. So this one has a slightly different target demographic from the rest of his Discworld books, but it can be enjoyed by all ages. It's a book that really got me into the Discworld because I started reading them when I was around 10 or 11, so it serves as a great introduction. It's about a young girl, Tiffany Aching, who is set to become a witch, and during the story her young brother is abducted by the Queen of the Fae, so she has to save her brother with her newfound powers and the help of these small fairies called the Knack Mac Feegle, or the Wee Freemen, who are small, loud, drunken, thieving, violent, tattooed, Scottish little pixies. Yes, that's right, pixies. Who are absolutely hilarious, and I would highly recommend the series. But for 2 adult recommendations, I will recommend my favourite Discworld book, which is the first in a series, and that is Going Postal, which stars Moise von Litvig, who is an ex-con who's been employed by the patrician who runs the capital of the Discworld, Ankh-Morpork, to re-establish the post office. The post office is in complete disrepair, nobody uses it anymore, and Moise von Litvig is set with the task of kind of building it back up from the ground, and it's absolutely hilarious. I love Moise von Litvig, he's one of my favourite Discworld characters, and there are some other absolutely fantastic characters in here as well. Would highly recommend this one. And lastly, for Discworld novels, I thought I would recommend Mort. I really enjoyed this book, and I know it's enjoyed by a lot of other people, and this is the first in the Death series, so again a great place to start, and it follows Mort, who becomes Death's apprentice. Mort is a mortal boy who, when he attends an apprentice fair to find an apprenticeship, ends up the apprentice of Death, the Grim Reaper, and Death is one of the best Discworld characters. He crops up quite a lot in different books because, you know, he's Death and he's fantastic, and he's definitely one of Terry Pratchett's best literary creations. I don't know anybody that doesn't like the character of Death, so an excellent place to start. But whilst we're on the topic of fantasy, I have one other fantasy comedy series and author to talk to you about. This is more of an urban fantasy series, as it's set in our world, but is full of goblins and fairies and wizards. So definitely not lacking in the magic nor the humour, and those are the books of Tom Holt. This is The Portable Door. This is the first in the J.W.W. Wells series, which follows Paul Carpenter, who gets an admin job at a large company that he doesn't know what they do in the slightest, and he's just set a lot of kind of odd but mundane tasks along with a fellow new employee who's equally at a loss to what they're doing, and things kind of unravel from there. There is, like I said, a lot of fantasy elements and humorous characters. It's all just a bit ridiculous, but somehow you still feel very attached to the characters and are rooting for them, and I zoomed through this book, absolutely adored it. This is to date the only series by Tom Holt I've read. He's written a whole host of other comic fantasy books, so I'm definitely going to be checking out some of those in the future. Now I have one science fiction series to recommend to you before I get onto something more realistic, and this will probably come as no surprise to you, but it is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and its sequels by Douglas Adams. I adore this series. It was originally written as a radio show, and I actually have the audio version of the radio show, so I've listened to all of those multiple times, absolutely adore them. Books, however, equally fantastic. It was adapted into a book series. I must say, as the series goes on, it gets a little bit convoluted and hard to follow, but in particular the first book and the most immediate sequel are absolutely fantastic. It follows Arthur Dent, who is a human who doesn't realise that his best friend, Ford Prefect, is actually an alien who is currently writing a updated version of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is, as it implies, a Hitchhiker's Guide to travelling around space. And it's about Arthur Dent's introduction to the whole host of strange alien life forms and planets that are outside of the Earth, and his journey with Ford Prefect. Fantastic book and series, and I'd highly recommend checking out the books as well as the radio play. But I did promise something more realistic next, and those are the novels of Roddy Doyle. Roddy Doyle writes a whole host of different types of novels, some of which are comedies. I have here the Barrytown trilogy, which are 3 books, 3 more companion books set in Ireland, and the first one, The Commitments, is the one I've read, and it's probably the most famous. There was a film and there's a stage adaptation. It's about a group of young kids in Ireland who decide to set up a soul group. And it's basically about their formation of this band, their practicing of their songs, and the interaction between the different band members, which is not always incredibly civil. And it's just absolutely hilarious. The characters are funny and identifiable. It's definitely quite a simple storyline, but it really benefits from that. It's really enjoyable and it's not very long at all, so I'd highly recommend checking this out. But I did also want to briefly mention some of my favourite children's books at this point, because Roddy Doyle actually wrote a children's book series which I read as a child but would recommend to adults alike, and that is The Giggler Treatment, which is a children's book, but it's absolutely fantastic and it's what introduced me to the comedy of Roddy Doyle. It follows a family where the children have had an argument with their dad who's grounded them unfairly, and it's about these creatures called the Gigglers who, when children are like grounded or punished unfairly, punish their parents in turn by tricking them into stepping into dog's dirt. I know, it sounds absurd that the whole book is about this, and the whole book is about this. It is very clever, and Roddy Doyle is just a really clever, witty writer, even when writing for children. But lastly, I thought I would go way back to some very early comedy from about 2,000 years ago in fact, but a piece of comedy that I think still stands up as being very funny today, and that is Petronius's Satyricon. This is an ancient Roman novel written by Petronius. It takes the mickey out of quite rich Roman culture and the Emperor Nero, but whether you're familiar with your Roman history or not, I still think this is a very funny book. It's very crude, so if you don't like crude humour and sex jokes, then probably not for you, but it is a really interesting example of ancient literature. Only one other Latin novel survives, in fact, and I have to warn you that this doesn't technically survive in full. It is somewhat fragmentary, so whilst you're reading it, there are gaps in the plot that randomly come up. But although I'm sure it would have been fun to read it in full, I still think it's a really enjoyable, really interesting, really wacky read. Lots of references to Roman culture and Roman mythology, so I would highly recommend this. It made me laugh out loud, and I think in particular if you're looking for something a little bit different, want to read something a bit more historical, then this is definitely worth checking out. But those are all the books I had to recommend to you in this video. If you have any favourite books that make you laugh out loud, then do recommend them to me in the comments down below. Absolutely love a funny book. In particular, a funny fantasy book I'm a big fan of, so would love to hear your recommendations. But until next time guys, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye! Hi guys, so I'm here today to do my birthday book haul. These are all the books that I received as gifts from friends and family on my birthday.